वो लेने गया कैमरा राजा यूनिवर्सिटी बड़ौदा वो मैं काम कर रहा है yes hello yes sir you are audible to us yes
वहीं से मैम यहाँ तो ये वाला
You need to follow them.
हाँ जी
गूगल पे देख ले
So friends, a very good morning to all of you. My friends at Nater, a very warm welcome to all of you. And you are all from UP and one from Punjab. A very welcome again. Let's be started. The program is development. This is a program starting from still frame. And the program and a very on the important of building world-class communities. And the important school of culture. We have invited Dr. Padma Kumar Nair. He is director LM Thapar School of Management in Punjab, an institution which is really famous for the work being done by them. They are producing innovative students, working with the innovative curriculum, and thinking that every student is unique and accordingly working to the best of their performance and making them perform the best. With this thought, we have invited that Thopper is already striving for a world-class institution, and they are taking different initiatives. And under the leadership of Dr. Nair, many new initiatives have been taken, and everybody is appreciating the work they have done. Dr. Nair is basically doctorate in engineering, MBA and MTech, traveled throughout the world, seen different organizations in the world-class organizations, gave his inputs at different places, and knows what is happening throughout the world so that he can produce the best institution in his own country in the name of Dr. LM Thapar School of Management. He is striving hard for this, and he will be giving you inputs. What are the important issues which are required to be taken care of for building a world-class institution or a university, and the most importantly, the role of faculty. I assume that faculty is a pivot on which everybody is revolving. In any institution, if faculty is good, everything is good. So the issue which he is going to talk is world-class institutions, building world-class institutions or universities, and the role of faculty emphasis will be on the role of culti also. So I am requesting Dr. Padma Nair to take the session because we have already delayed it by 20 minutes. Sorry for the delay in any case. This is the first day and this happens. This may be due to technical reasons or otherwise. I am really sorry for it. And we are going to start the session. Without wasting time, I am requesting you to come. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. You know, before we start, I want to tell you two important things. You know, I'm not an expert, and also, unfortunately, I'm not always that humble. But I like both in the sense that I want to be humble and also I want to be an expert. But I will try, but I might make statements which are not very humble. But my intention is not to be arrogant, but sometimes you need to courageously question certain beliefs and assumptions to really take institutions forward and create world-class universities. You know, when we think about building, you know, I don't like the word building that much. So I want to look at it more as creating. All right. Now, role of faculty. I would argue that the role of faculty is central. You know, when we are talking about creating world-class universities, there is no question that the core and the dynamo of that change and that transformation is faculty. But today what we would do is what are these world-class universities and why do we need them and how do we create? We don't have that much time. Probably I will talk for about 40 minutes and rest of the time we can use for having good discussion. We have been working on these things. Not only I'm practicing, trying to create the world-class institutions, but we are also doing research in this area. Can we get this? Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Sir, you please down. I think somebody. No, I think she's going. You please come. I think we should have good. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So. Yeah. So before we think about anything, you know, we have this notion that science is one fixed way of achieving great things. You know, scientific developments are very, very important, but we should not look at science as the way to finding the truth and one fixed way of achieving what we want to achieve. You look at here we have pictures of our old television picture tube and a scanning electron microscope. Interestingly, both use electrons for their, in one case, creating image, other case actually seeing very small artifacts. Television is all about creating image, and a scanning electron microscope is all about creating or imaging artifacts. Both uses electron as a probe or as a way to create the image, but you can see that electrons, in one case, in the case of television, we invoke the idea that electrons are particles, hard particles. But in the case of the scanning electron microscope, we invoke the idea that electrons are waves.
Yes, sir.
Many of you understand this?
नहीं दिख रहा है.
नहीं है पीपीटी से में.
You know, it's
This is the problem from that side, that people are suddenly switch on their mic, so that sound really disturbing.
Understand. So what we are trying to understand here is, you know, what are electrons? The question is what are electrons, but the answer is it doesn't matter. In one case, you invoke the idea that electrons are hard particles. Other case, you invoke the idea that electrons are waves. But then, what are we trying to say? Science is not an opportunity to find the truth. It is an opportunity for design and innovation. So, see, I think this is a misconception in the conception in the sense that if you look at science as one truth and understanding that to produce something, no, science should be looked at as an opportunity to creating something more interesting. And this is a great example: electrons as particles and electrons as waves. And once you assume as particles, we all have enjoyed those great TV programs. As waves, it is the start of the revolution of nanotechnology. So just to give you an idea, so that let's not have this binary understanding of science going forward. Now coming to the real question, we talked about creating world-class institutions and the role of faculty, and I've told you the role of faculty is central to creating world-class universities. I thought I would kind of do a little research on the term world-class. Now, if you look at Merriam-Webster dictionary, world-class is being of the highest caliber in the world. That is how this dictionary defines it. And the very first time this term was used was in 1939, and about 70 years ago, or 80 years ago, and a Google search returned about 4 billion results. So, you know, over these 80 years, I think a lot of people are using. In fact, this term world-class is overused without truly understanding. You know, I'm not arguing that world-class has one strict meaning, but we all have our own meanings. But whatever it is, that idea caught on, and we are all interested in world-class by looking at 4 billion results. Now, you know, let's focus on the idea of highest caliber, being of the highest caliber in the world. Highest caliber in what? Highest caliber in what, and how are we? So today's discussion is all about understanding highest caliber in what and how are we going to get it. So highest caliber in research, or teaching, community engagement, academic and administrative processes, and making students citizen or intellectual ready. So highest caliber in probably in all 5 areas. And if you look at our institutions, Indian institutions, thousands of them, if you include maybe tens of thousands of them, if you include all the universities and colleges and polytechnics and all, we have you know, large number of institutions. All those institutions may not be able to focus on all 5, but all 5 are important depending on the context. So highest caliber in all. And then how do we do it? By understanding the constraints, that's a limit of capacity, then creativity with courage, and compassionate leadership. These are not some high-level cliche statements. I would try to bring the discussion and connect it to these points. Finally, if you want to achieve, or if you want to kind of start that journey of going towards world-class, highest in caliber, I think this idea of excellence is extremely important. Again, what is interesting when you think about excellence I've been reading several papers where they have at least mentioned the word excellence at least once, and surprisingly, most of those papers rarely define excellence in an operational or an actionable way. Many times we confuse excellence with quality. There's a distinct difference between excellence and quality. A Maruti 800 is a high quality car. So quality there is all about fitting the purpose. Excellence is about doing something better than it has ever done before. So doing it better all the time, doing it better and doing it better. Unfortunately, as a collective, as a culture, we Indians lack that need for excellence. If there is a picture you want to, pin it onto this wall, if it works with 3 nails, we are happy. We are kind of, unfortunately, we are a jugadu culture. It's nothing completely wrong with that jugadu culture, but achieving excellence needs a different kind of temperament and mindset. And excellence is not always about putting in more money or having more resources. It's also a temperament and a way of, it's a behavior more than anything. Excellence is not always same as quality. I think we should not confuse excellence with quality. But all this we need to achieve with excellence, a passionate need for excellence in mind. Now, so let's look at one by one. Highest caliber in research. The problem is it's almost impossible to come to a consensus about what is highest caliber in anything. So we'll look at research. What do we mean by highest caliber in research? Is it high quality and excellent publications? Journal impact factor or the prestige of the journal? Is it citations of your research work published? Is it actual societal and value impact? That means your research has led to some kind of an interesting technology or led to more research and whatever that overall impact in so many different ways. Or patents produced and again the impact after that. And also, as I was telling you, we need to remember quality versus excellence. And again, the question is, when you are talking about highest caliber research, are we talking about fundamental research or applied research? Or sometimes, some government programs would say that every research should produce something immediately meaningful, something which you can actually convert it into something, a product or a service which you can create and sell. Is that important? And if we all start doing only applied research, where will we base our applied research? Who will do basic research? So these are all very important questions. Then comes the training and education of our researchers and our faculty, availability of funding, and even more important, rarely talked about, is the impact of the economic environment. What I mean by that is, say, for example, when accreditation agencies, our regulators visit our universities, they would ask, oh, you know what? Harvard, 80% of the research funding comes from, they would say 80% of the research funding comes from industrial corporate sources. But in reality, it is not. If you look at most top-class US universities, most of the research funding comes from government sources, not from, but maybe some consultants might have told our policymakers that, oh, these universities are getting a lot of funding from industry, not that. So it is very nice for our government bureaucrats to remember, listen to that, and because that's what they're looking for. But there are universities. Recently, I visited a university in Australia, University of New South Wales. One particular department, almost 80% of the funding comes from industry. I think there are not that many universities in the US where 80% of the funding comes from the industry. Most funding comes from the government. So in India, for example, if you ask, say, NITR or any other, even some of our IITs, and ask them, this university is getting 80% of the funding from the industry. Why are you not? But then we are forgetting the fact that our economic environment, the industrial ecosystem, is quite different from Melbourne or Silicon Valley or Boston or New York, those regions. So we need to consider everything. So what are we telling here? Highest caliber research is a definition in motion. It should, again, it should fit the purpose rather than telling it's all about citation, it's all about impact, it's all about counting patents. Also, we are in serious trouble if our accreditation agencies and regulators and ranking agencies, if they start counting publications. You know what happens when you start counting publication? Scopus or SCI or SSCI, there are several thousand journals. If you say that we will count those journals, then what happens? Most researchers would tend to publish in the bottom 1% or bottom 5%. So the idea of highest caliber, the type of regulation and ranking and accreditation sometimes completely goes against the idea of achieving that high level of excellence. So it's very, very difficult for us to, we can sit here and discuss and debate. It's very difficult for us to come to a consensus and say that these are the 3 or 4 criteria we use to achieve excellence in research. It's difficult. But if you define excellence in research as what I'm producing today is better than what has been produced ever, I think that's a definition. And if we can kind of institutionalize that definition, and if our culture understands and kind of respects that definition, probably we will achieve excellence in research, not by counting publications, not by counting citations, not by looking at impact factor or prestige of the journal. So I'm not telling these are not important. They are important, but they should not be the defining factors.
Like under UGC, there are around 60,000 journals, in
So-
which most of the people are participating.
Exactly. So after those 60,000 journals, probably I can kind of make a guess, 80% of the papers are published in the bottom, maybe 20% of the journals.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that is not the way we achieve this highest caliber. That is not the way we achieve world-class institutional status. Now, after research, when it comes to teaching, it could be content, it could be pedagogy, it could be the practice of teaching, it could be all the 3. You could measure through student satisfaction. You could, understand how much they have learned. Students may not be satisfied, but they have learned a lot. In some cases, students are extremely satisfied, but they have not learned much. Are they finding employment? Are the employers satisfied? All right. Or, the kind of returns they are getting, with respect to how much they have spent for their studies and what kind of salaries they're getting. All those things are important. Which one is more important? Difficult to say. What is the relative weightage of these factors? Difficult to say. So again, when we are thinking about highest caliber, the term or the word you need to remember is excellence. One more time, excellence is not about this percentage of placement. Excellence is not measured by average salary. Excellence is not just measured by satisfaction. Excellence is everything and doing it better than what we have done ever before. So that is excellence. Doing it better than before, doing it better than before. That is the journey of excellence. Not just focusing on any of these benchmarks, doing it better. Now, the third point is community engagement, and how do you achieve the highest caliber there? Is it educating citizens in general? Is it developing relevant technologies for the community? The villagers and the areas around us, around the educational institution? Is it social venturing and solving and creating a lot of social good where commercial entrepreneurs and for-profit organizations may not care or venture into? Contributing to developing sustainable communities and smart cities and sustainable development, for the future. So these are all important questions when we think about highest caliber in community engagement. But now the question is, which one? How do we measure it? How do we benchmark it? This is not that easy. So again, when it is not easy, I think the question is relevance and achieving more than what has been achieved before. Another factor is the academic and administrative processes. You may not directly see this as part of creating a world-class institution, but these processes are important. Why are these processes important? Here I have a very interesting question. I don't know whether you find it interesting. Should we Uberize our universities? What do we mean by Uberizing our universities? You all know, at least I can take 4 or 5 examples like Facebook and Uber and Airbnb and maybe Amazon. Look at Facebook. Facebook is the biggest media company in the world without any media outlets. Amazon is probably the first or number 1 or number 2 retailers in the world with very few retail outlets. Airbnb is the biggest hotel company in the world without any hotel rooms. Uber is the biggest taxi company in the world without any cabs. All right. So what do they do right? They have created excellent platforms. Excellent platforms. You see, we are also using a platform. It is free. It has its own limitations. But creating that excellent platform, and what should this platform do? Platform should minimize optimize the logistics of interaction seamless. This platform should make, what is the logistic of interaction we are talking about? Interacting, all of us interacting, all these remote locations, they're interacting. So to make the logistics of interaction seamless. So I think universities should be the test bed of creating that. For a country like India, with 1.3 billion people, I think we should create platforms to make the logistics of interaction seamless in every area of our work and every aspect of our activities as citizens. So I would argue that our universities, our world-class universities, should achieve highest caliber in doing that. That's what I mean by Uberizing our universities. Back at Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, I'm heading the business school, Thapar School of Management. We have just started that. We have a little Android-based app. Students give feedback within 15 minutes after ending a class. It's not that at the end of the term or end of the semester you give some kind of a teacher feedback. If I'm very angry as a student, I might go and give a negative feedback. If I'm very happy, I may not even care to give a feedback, because we say something most of the time only when we are angry, right? When we are happy, we go home and have our samosas, but not write anything. So this feedback app is set up in such a way that after the class, within 15 minutes, they will have to give feedback. Only then they get their attendance. And just feedback will not give their attendance. The teacher is also taking the attendance using the same app. So teacher attendance and the feedback should match. And also, this is a great way of, I truly believe creating world-class institutions, compassionate leadership is important. In a society where we are so much used to social hierarchy, we talk about compassion, but we rarely practice compassion. For if you want to practice compassion and get the work done, you need these kind of things. In our feedback app, the questions are very simple. Did the professor come to class on time? One question. So I need not tell my colleagues that, why didn't you go to class on time? He or she herself can see what is her record for the semester, because there's a dashboard. I can also see. Because once we talk with the data, we don't have to pull your rank. You don't have to use your power. The data speaks. So this Uberizing everything will also help us, give us that platform to lead with compassion. I call 3 Fs: fair, firm, and friendly. You need not shout at anybody when you have clear data in front of you. So did the professor come to class on time? And after every class, the students are giving a star rating, 1 star to 5 star. Every day it is happening after every class. Then students also, the question is, what did you really enjoy, or what aspects you have learned in this class? And what other ideas or concepts you would like to be discussed in the class? There are 4 or 5 questions like that. And did we achieve the stated learning outcomes fully, partially, which are they? So that's kind of the start of Uberizing our universities. And the second project, the next level project from there is, after every class, student is giving feedback. Now we are developing 2 things. One, we are creating micro modules of these lectures. Micro modules means a professor should be able to create that module in about 20 minutes. That's a micro module. Every lecture should have several hundred to 1,000 micro modules. So if we have a set of micro modules, we have all these questions answered after every class. Now we are building an expert system for creating customized notes for the students. That means a student can anytime say that, generate my note. The system will generate a note and send it to the student based on what kind of feedback the student has given. And there will be a crawler. It will go and see the micro modules and maybe some web links, aggregate everything and produce it. That is the project now we are working on. That's about Uberizing the university. So university is a laboratory for optimizing processes and systems and policy innovation. What we lack in India? We talk about innovation all the time. Our regulators talk about innovation all the time. I can challenge you. In the last, say, 70 years, I cannot come up with one solid example of innovation in the area of higher education. I'm not talking about using this remote internet access, or these are not the kind of innovations we have created. These are kind of standard incremental things somebody else have created somewhere else in the world, and we are using it. These are not real innovations. I cannot come up with a single example of a real innovation in our country. Why that kind of innovation is not happening in our country is because we resist any policy innovation. Policy innovation should match with other kind of product and service innovation. If policy innovation is lagging, we have practically zero policy innovation. I challenge you, you tell me one thing where you can say that our policymakers, they stood up and courageously made this change and that has initiated. There are so many emails from all kinds of agencies we get every day as heads of the institutions and doing this and doing that. It's all incremental, but we don't see any real policy innovation. I think a world-class university should be the test bed for optimizing process and systems and really propelling or initiating policy innovation. Let me tell you, the mother of innovation, the nucleus of innovation is deviance. If you follow a standard path, you will never innovate. Why countries like Japan, even Singapore, suffer from this problem of innovation? Because they are so structured and ordered and systematic. So why US is the place of innovation? Because Americans take, they have the courage to deviate. Courage to deviate is the mother of innovation. That's seriously lacking in our culture. Now, making students citizen intellectual ready. You might have noticed I have not used the term corporate readiness here. Let me tell you, at least for me, higher education is not to make our students corporate ready. It is the biggest mistake our regulators and policymakers and our leaders and academicians, all of us are doing. The role of higher education is not about making students corporate ready. It is to make them citizen or intellectual ready. And then the question is, then what is higher education for? I think it's a fundamental question. I would argue that it also comes from my readings of Krishnamurthy's philosophy on education, I would argue that higher education has two important purposes: knowing oneself and intellectually freeing oneself. So that self-knowledge and intellectual freedom, these are the two most important goals of higher education. Once you do this well, I think then the corporate readiness is the result of a job well done. It is so. It is not, we are not training students to work for IBM or Amazon or, Tata's or, Microsoft. We should educate our students to be citizen ready, intellectual ready. They know who they are and they have the courage to go and explore and create the next best great thing for the world. Especially, think about it. Even though we are in our leaders and everybody talks about we need more managers, we need more engineers, we need this and we need that. Probably we might need more doctors. I don't see we need more engineers and more managers, because the developments in AI and other technologies are, those are so, fantastic that we are quickly moving into what is called Industry 4.0. I think you all might have heard of Industry 4.0. Industry 1 was with the Industrial Revolution, 2 is with electricity, 3 is with automation, and 4 is with all deep learning, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and all kinds of things. See, manufacturing for one person, so that kind of customization with the data. So I think we need less and less the traditionally trained graduates and more graduates trained this way. The self-knowledge and the intellectual freedom. So the highest caliber of kind of developing students this way is what a world-class institution should do, not just making them industry ready. It's unfortunate, but I think it's high time that we ask these difficult questions to ourselves. Now, university rankings, should we really care? It's a very, very important thing. The problem with the university ranking is a zero-sum game, because how many universities in the world can be in the top 100? Maybe about 110, 115. Sometimes they say that 86th rank, there are 3 universities. You look at it. But do you really think there will only be 120 universities of that caliber and that quality? No, it's a zero-sum game. That is one point. And second point about ranking is that ranking agencies have a rubric. They say that we first of all, the relative weightage they give to different parts, research and teaching and employability and many other things, the relative weightage they give just comes like this. There is no scientific or philosophical or ethical reason to argue that these must be the optimum relative weightage. One point. Second point is they consider 5-6 factors. What about other factors? So ranking has, I'm not telling ranking is not useful. It could be, but the usefulness is limited. And it's a zero-sum game. And may not be useful in this form. In our context, we are a very unique socio-economic cultural environment in India. This may not be, kind of valid or that useful in this context. So every university in the world is trying to be in the top 100 and top 200 and top 500. I think our leaders and our regulators and our academicians should stop doing this cut and paste. Being a Mickey Mouse, that means being exactly same as somebody else is doing. And ask some difficult and important questions about what kind of, say, for example, if I look at my school, my business school, I would consider it's one of the best business schools in India to study. Why? Because we are the best of the best faculty. And also I attract about 20, 30 international faculty to come and teach every year. So the rubric will look at, count the number of publications, as he was telling. There are 50,000 journals or 40,000 journals in the list. I don't know what, even if it is 5,000, 10,000. And if you're publishing in the bottom 10%, I don't think it is actually doing anything good for the students. You see, ultimately our universities are there mainly for the students and for the society. Otherwise, there's no reason for any way government to fund it. Even private universities receive some funding through research. So I think this is a very important question, and there needs to be a lot more discussion. But the problem with these discussions, many times we start these discussions with us being in the center, the faculty. I think then the discussions would not go anywhere. I think the center of our discussion, or the center, should be either students or the society or both, not faculty. We are the servants of students and society. It should not be self-serving. Anyway, this is a very, very controversial, difficult question to ask and answer. So I want to quickly summarize the role of faculty after giving this long introduction. I know you could challenge me. How can I kind of come up with this is more through practice and reflection than any serious research. And faculty's role is everything I've told you. It is about envisioning and ideating. What and whether ideating is first or initiating first, I don't know. But this idea of creating something wonderful and new, and for achieving excellence, there's a starting point. Then you need to initiate little activities. You need to be creative. Innovation starts with the policy innovation, if possible. And sometimes you need to lobby for policy innovation. You need to inspire people around you, and you need to implement. It's not good enough. You do up to this implementation stage. You should also institutionalize that in your culture. I call my 6I framework, and all with a focus on achieving excellence. So ideating, initiating, innovating, inspiring, implementing, and institutionalizing. All with it's easy for you to remember this 6I framework, and all with the goal of achieving excellence. Now, back to the question of achieving highest caliber. And we have talked about research, we have talked about teaching, we have talked about community engagement, academic and administrative processes, making student, citizen, or intellectual ready. Now let's briefly look at how do we achieve. We have a lot of constraints, a lot of limitations, and we need to be innovative. I like the word being creative, and cultural transformation is important, and also, as I was mentioning you, compassionate leadership. Again, with the focus of achieving excellence. What is excellence? I've already talked about. I myself don't know what exactly it is, but I can tell you, doing things. It's a habit of doing things better than before. It's also a temperament. You can see some people, they don't feel good about if something is not excellent, if something is not done better than before. So it's a habit and a temperament. And of course, it is about doing better than ever. But what is interesting in India is that as a culture, we may not find excellence in general, but we see islands of excellence everywhere in India. I have two examples here: Indian Space Research Organization and Baba Atomic Research Center. These are beautiful islands of excellence in India. So it is not that as a culture we cannot create excellent entities, excellent institutions. We can, but we don't see. For example, look at our airlines. Whatever it is, they have a very high safety standard. So it is possible for us to achieve excellence even in our culture, but it is not everywhere. So if we can kind of spread that, the culture of excellence across whatever we do, then I think we are starting at the right place towards the journey for achieving or creating world-class institutions. So what are our enemies of excellence? Overregulation is number one. I'll come to that point if we get time. Something else I have been researching on called micro collectivism. Micro collectivism is all about, we Indians, for us, what is important is our immediate family and friends, not the state or the community or the country. So we are too much focused on, I sometimes call a small group tribalism. It's quite primal, micro collectivism. So this is a major enemy of achieving excellence. If there's a position, my uncle's son is around, even if there are other people, they're more qualified, they can do a much better job. Socially, it is desirable that I support my immediate family and friends. So those are the consequences. The result of micro collectivism is nepotism. So those behaviors are totally against achieving excellence. Also, poverty. Poverty is a major problem. I'm not talking about poor people. I'm talking about the phenomena of poverty. Think about this. We are talking about world-class institutions. Every university is talking about getting high-quality students. So where are these high-quality students produced? They originate from our villages. We have thousands and thousands of villages in our country. And when a poor village girl conceives, many times she's malnourished, not enough nutritious food. So already the disadvantage for that baby is starting at the conception. So that is a major issue when we think about excellence. So when we are thinking about let's attract high quality students, I think we should start thinking about what can we do with our villages. How can we help them? How can we make sure that these young women are nourished well and they're taken care of? And that is the starting point for achieving excellence. You cannot laterally do it. Of course, we need to do everything in parallel. Then even a much more sensitive, critical topic is the social hierarchy, our caste system of this steep hierarchy. You see, hierarchy is unavoidable. You go to America, you go to Europe, you go to Japan, hierarchy is there. Why hierarchy in those societies? If we value something in somebody, say, for example, one of you is a great cricket player. So if I like cricket and I value that, on that scale, you are above me. So the question is, should the hierarchy be this way or the hierarchy be this way? That is the only question. So what the Scandinavian countries have achieved, they have not eliminated hierarchy in any form, but their hierarchy is not this way. Their hierarchy is this way. So hierarchy is there to stay. And also you need to understand, we as human beings, as a species, probably we are about 70, 80, 100,000 years old as a species, okay? Evolved about 100,000 years ago. If you look at lobsters, they are at least 300 million years old, 300. But if you go and study a lobster colony on the seabed, you might find this kind of hierarchy already there. Some of the brain chemicals are also quite similar to our brain chemicals. If lobsters fight, if the alpha male wins and the other one is defeated, very tired and lost, if you can catch that male and give oxytocin or some other, I'm not a biochemist, injection, this guy can go back and fight again. So the type of brain chemicals, what we carry today are quite old, even though we have evolved in the last 100,000 years. So the social hierarchy, even these lobster colonies, you can see hierarchy. So hierarchy is unavoidable, but the question is, as a collective, as a civilized society, should we tolerate this level of hierarchy or this level of hierarchy? That's one point. Second is, the Scandinavian countries and other European countries, there's a lot of social mobility. So I think that is something we Indians have to deal with. So we need to reduce that distance, and also we need to make sure that there is enough social mobility. Otherwise, all those would go against the idea of excellence. So just for our discussion, I have a table comparing India, US, China, Japan, and EU, and I have used 6 dimensions here to compare. One is faculty quality. You see, what happened in India in the last 20 years is a lot of economic progress, sudden demand for well-trained professionals. So economy has grown, demand for well-trained professionals. We did not have that many business schools or engineering colleges to kind of educate them, and so that many professionals were not graduating. So suddenly this exploded the number of colleges in the country. So that means that the well-trained faculty, the numbers were not matching the demand. So at this point, faculty quality, I would say, it's a wide spectrum, but it's kind of moderate. US, if you look at it, it's high. China, moderate to high. Japan, high. EU, high. That is about faculty quality. Quality of fellow students, widespread in India. US, similar, probably slightly higher quality, but still similar. China, similar. But Japan, moderate to high quality. EU, generally high quality. But think about this. I see India, US. Let's look at India and US widespread. Why is it? Because our school systems are not uniform. School systems across are not well funded. This is also the problem with the US. You know what India's the way India has evolved in the last 2,000 years into this social hierarchy and extreme rich and poor difference, US has done it in the last 500 years. The US also, if you look at student quality, there is a widespread. But I think Japan and the EU are doing a much better job. Why? Because they have a much better primary, secondary, tertiary education. The primary school, middle school, high school, they have an excellent system of educating their school children. And that's why where I say India and the United States widespread, but Japan and EU moderate to high quality. Finance, it's limited, but it's available. US, again, moderate to limited. China is willing to spend a lot of money for higher education. Japan and Europe, moderate to high. That is about finance. Then facilitation expertise, the expertise of our regulators and our accreditation agencies and all. In our country, it's limited because we never had these many universities. We never had these many colleges. Suddenly, we need to have so many professionals to go and inspect and help and develop. So I think it's limited. US, and also US accreditation is not government run. It is peer-to-peer accreditation. So they have enough expertise. China is better than ours. Japan, Europe, they have a very good system of doing that. Then the economic environment, it's not negative in our country, but the economic environment, what I mean is that corporations willing to fund big research projects, those things are not there yet, but it's kind of quite good in the US, quite good in Japan and EU, and China is kind of getting better. If you look at the regulatory regime, our country, extremely restricted. Everything, I'll also tell you why it is that way. But US is open and flexible. China is slightly better than ours. Japan is restricted, more like ours. And EU is moderately open and flexible. The culture of openness to policy innovation I was talking about, we are not at all open. US, highly open. China, moderately open. Japan is also moderately open. EU is open. You see, that's kind of quite interesting. So this is the general scenario, and you can see what kind of an institutional environment will help create world-class universities. You look at most world-class universities are in the US or in the European Union area. You can kind of see with this comparison where we stand and where they stand. All these are very important, and let me tell you, this is not fully comprehensive, but these are some of the most important dimensions one needs to consider. Now, when we are faced with a major issue, it's a big problem we are supposed to solve. But my question is, are humans good problem solvers? What do you think? Are we good problem solvers? But let's look at what kind of problems we have faced during evolution. Okay, our ancestors, what kind of problems they were facing? Our ancestors were solving problems with the 3 distinct characteristics. They were simple problems. You know, you sight a lion. Is it a complicated problem? It is not complicated because we know it's a dangerous one. It's simple. There's no analysis needed to understand a lion will kill you. That's why it is simple. If you need to analyze it, then it's a complicated one. Then you don't understand the problem. You need to analyze it. This is a simple problem. A lion in front of you, do you think it's a complicated one? It's a simple one. You know this you need to do something, right? It is simple, but it is dangerous. It is simple, dangerous, and problems needing immediate solution. Think about it. Simple, dangerous, and needing immediate solution. These were the problems our ancestors were facing. What kind of problems are we facing today? They're complex, not dangerous typically, not always, and problems whose solutions can wait. So this is the difference. So now, if you look at it, our brains are evolved to solving simple, dangerous, and problems needing immediate solution. But contemporary problems are complex, not dangerous, and the solutions can wait. All right? So under these circumstances, we are in trouble. What kind of trouble? We have something called, you know, this phrase I've only recently learned, but I used to discuss this in the class all the time. But this particular phrase I'm going to use is called a plunge-in bias. Plunge-in bias means whenever you're posed with a problem, you immediately jump into a solution. Why do we do that? Because a brain is wired to solving simple, dangerous, and problems needing immediate solution. That's why we jump in. But for creating world-class universities, that evolutionary brain is not very useful. We need to actually train our brain to deal with complex, not dangerous, but the problems which the solutions can wait. That is the mindset we need to develop to create world-class institutions. This is very, very important, not only for you guys, but also having a discussion with your students, whether it's engineering or management or liberal arts. This is very important because students, you ask them a question, they have an immediate superficial answer. Don't you think so? That's because our brains are wired that way. All right. So what do you do with complex? You know, this is a very old paper published in 1973, Dilemmas in a General Theory of Planning. You know, this paper talks about, you know, complex problems are what they call, Rittel and Weber call, are wicked problems. What are the characteristics of wicked problems? They're complex, multiple stakeholders. The stakeholders can never come to a consensus on what the problem is. Think about it. Creating world-class universities. We all sit here and talk. I can guarantee you that we won't be able to come to a consensus on what it is and how to do it. So those are wicked problems. And this paper talks about ways to deal with, ways to approach wicked problems, not the same way as approaching and dealing with simple, dangerous, and problems needing immediate solution. So one of the ways, characteristics of wicked problems are multiple stakeholders, plurality of problem definition. one would define a world-class university, oh, with a lot of research. Somebody would say that no. World-class universities should have real impact on the community. A third person would come and say that, world-class universities should produce students who are good at dealing with Industry 4.0. Maybe a fourth one and a fifth one. So plurality of problem definition and lack of convergence is one of the key characteristics of wicked problems. Poor problem definition leads to solutions which are unacceptable to various stakeholders. That's and now examples are decisions related to utilization of public goods, creating world-class institutions, creating smart cities, tax policies, education policies, regulating and ranking. All these are wicked problems. We can never come to a consensus or convergence. All right. I'm going to introduce a simple little tool for you. I think it's nothing complicated because I'm a teacher, so I need to always come up with some tools for everybody. We have developed a little framework for reframing. Reframing is a way to look at a problem through different angles. Simple, not that complicated. So why do we reframe? We reframe to communicate. We reframe to solve problems. Sometimes, if I can use the terminology of Noam Chomsky, to manufacture consent. It is also a problem-solving tool, reframing. So let's look at what it is. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this controversy in Kerala now? The Sabarimala controversy? Yeah? You know what it is? Not completely correct. Because females can go, but they can go only between before 10 and after 50. Okay? That's one. And second thing, this is not the only Ayyappa temple in Kerala. There are thousands of Ayyappa temple in Kerala, but this is deep inside the forest. So now let's look at how this controversy is framed by different groups. If you're a believer, you are telling it's all about respecting tradition. So they're not telling it's about preventing women. No, they say that we have mothers and daughters and wives and sisters. So we respect women, but it's all about it's all about respecting tradition. So if you're a believer, but if you're a progressive thinker, you are telling it's all about women's right. So which framing is correct here? You cannot say. It depends on your view of the world. So two different ways of framing. But in reality, most of us respect the dignity of women and also the believers. It's not that I'll only respect women, I will not respect them. I'll only respect them, I will not respect women. No, most of us respect both groups of people. So this is the power of framing. You can frame to communicate. You can frame to manufacture consent. You can frame to solve problems. I thought this is a very contemporary issue. So that's the power of framing. I'll show you another interesting example from Italy. You all know that there is a little island, not a little island, it's really a big island at the southern end of Italy called Sicily. And for probably 100, 200 years, I don't know how many, 100, definitely in that order, this island is practically controlled by the mafia. And typically mafia don't go and directly, give difficult time to ordinary people, but they control the island economy. And anytime the government tried to control the mafia, they have killed the judges and the senior police officers. This has happened quite recently. Quite recently, it means in the last 3-4 years. A group of young students, after they completed their university degree, they were looking for a job in that island, and they found that because of this mafia's excessive control, they were not able to find a job. They thought, 7 of them, they thought they need to get together and do something. Think about it. Getting together and doing something where judges and senior police officers and politicians either gotten killed or their head broken or nose broken. What will these 7 kids do? What did they do? The very first thing they have done is They have made posters. This is in Italian. The posters read like this: a society that pays the piso, piso is the protection money, is a society without dignity. They made this poster and went to one small village and plastered this hundreds and thousands of posters across the village one night. So when you read this, this is a very beautiful way of framing. So it's a question of dignity. Do we really like, none of us would like somebody to tell us that we are not dignified individuals. So paying protection money is not a dignified behavior. This was the starting point. Interestingly, they made a huge difference. Why? Because the mafia can kill one police officer, one judge. Mafia cannot kill all the shop owners of city. You see, the most interesting thing about these kind of things, mafias, viruses, bacteria, this is something very, very interesting. This very dangerous virus called Ebola virus, and it has 3 versions. And the most dangerous version is already kind of extinct now. You know why? The most dangerous version, there are 3 versions. One is extremely dangerous. Other 2 are also very, very dangerous. But the one is extremely dangerous. The extremely dangerous version is now finished. Because this extremely dangerous version will kill its host immediately. So the host cannot move around and spread the virus. So same way, if mafia kills 1 or 2 people, the mafia can still survive. If mafia kills 2,000 people, the whole country will stand up and pulverize mafia. So this is completely different. So first they've done that. Then they individually went and talked to all the shopkeepers and said that if you agree, you all can decide in one day that they're not going to pay protection money, and we will give a seal to put it on the door. If it is 5 shopkeepers doing, they will go and break their legs. If it is 5,000 shopkeepers do, nothing will happen. That's how these guys have used the power of framing in a very interesting way to change that. So this is the seal they give to the shopkeepers when they declare that they're not going to pay protection. And people also started shopping only in those shops with this seal. So things have changed there. So our working definition of reframing is the process of redefining a problem or a situation by changing or redefining the underlying assumptions. So what are the underlying assumptions? So this is step 1, state the problem. Step 2, identify the underlying, whether the assumptions are implicit or explicit. Refine the assumptions using the, I'll show you a framework. And based on the new assumptions, redefine the problem. So this is the framework. When you think about a problem, you should think about its stakeholders, resource requirements, the history of the problem, outcomes, and your ideology, or I call TOL, your theory of life, the way you see the world. And, it's the lens through which you see the world and the filter through which you make sense of the world. Think about any problem. You think about the stakeholders. You think these people are really affected by this. Maybe not. They're not. Maybe somebody else. So that would help. Or you're thinking, we need a lot of money. You're thinking about resources. Maybe not. You may not need that much resources. Or you're thinking about the outcomes. You think certain outcomes are important. But upon rethinking and reflection, you think maybe those outcomes are less important, that something else is important. So all those, you question or you see the problem through these 5 lenses will help you to redefine it and reframe it. And reframing, multiple framing will give you opportunities to kind of come to an agreement between various stakeholders and sometimes a kind of a path towards a solution. Why did I use the term a path towards solution? Because saying we have found the solution is very arrogant. Because with wicked problems, the solution is many times non-existent. I want to give you another little example with my own faculty colleagues, a framing example. Everything started in 2020. I was teaching at UT Dallas in the US. And, I got a call from my secretary, and she told me, I need some help with my son's science project at school. The project was very simple. testing how fast cold water and warm water will drain. Okay, the experimental book said warm water will drain faster than cold water. So cold water on your left side, it will drain slower, and warm water will drain faster. Interestingly, the boy found the cold water drained faster than the warm water. So nobody could explain. The boy went to his teacher. She could not explain. So my secretary, my colleague asked me, how can we explain? Then I asked her, how did he actually perform the experiment? She said, took a paper cup, made a hole, and introduced it to another cup just to make sure that the kitchen floor is not dirty. So what happens here? When hot water flows, it heats up the air in that cup. It gives a upward pressure. It slows down hot water flow, and cold water flowed faster than hot water. So I told her my explanation, and the boy had written that down and got first place for science project at his age level. That's not the important story here. I started thinking about this idea. That was the time I was teaching a course called Sustainability for Managers. And I asked my MBA students, they're all with some experience, average age is probably about 30, 35 years. I asked them, can you explain this? None of them could explain. Then I asked my faculty colleagues at UT Dallas, we had around 100 faculty members. I asked many of them. None of them could explain. Then I thought, at our business schools, we teach, the socio-cultural, economic environment and political environment of the business. We very rarely talk about the physical environment of the business, even though 80% of our students go and work for high-tech corporations. But we talk about economics, politics, culture, history, everything, but never about the physical environment. So I suggested to my faculty colleagues when I joined Thapar, I asked them, see, this is the background. Why can't we teach material science to managers? And you all can expect the answer. The answer was very simple. What? No. I think business schools, we teach accounting and finance and operations and marketing and supply chain management, not material science for managers. I reframed the question. Do you agree that our students should gain a deeper understanding of the physical world around them? The question was changed. First question was, do you agree that we must teach material science to our MBA students? No. Do you agree that our students should gain a deeper understanding of the physical world around them? A resounding yes. This is the power of reframing. Look, when we are trying to create world-class institutions, we need to reframe. But reframing can happen effectively only if you can take yourself out of the center of that story. If it is all about your faculty, it's all about your next promotion, it's all about somehow, how do I tick the next box? I'm not telling that those are all horrible behaviors. We are all human. We do that. But that is going to deter your efforts to creating world-class institutions. So again, this table you saw. Questions? Yes.
There is a question which I have come across during my experience of assembly. Which kind of teacher should be encouraged the most? The one who is giving my institution a good number of research papers. Number two, the teacher who is best at teaching his or her subject. Third, the teacher who is very good at community work is taking the students to various villages and etc. and doing the community work. Another kind of person can be the my sports teacher who is helping students develop their other kind. So, which teacher should we encourage most to bring the institution to the excellence?
Understand? It's a great question. So let me reflect on the basis for this question. There is a problem whatever we do, where we focus on things which we can quickly quantify and measure. So what can be quickly quantified and measured will somehow gain a little bit more important than something which is important but which cannot be quantified and measured. You see? So that is where the challenge comes. So my simple answer to your question should be all of them, because we need great teachers, we need great researchers, and we also need champions for community engagement. But then the question is, you know, you see, the Western accreditation agencies would always ask you to state your mission and program goals, and based on your mission and program goals, they would tell you whether your faculty is adequate, whether your faculty profile is good enough. When I state that I want to educate the best of the best business graduates, and every focus is on education, then my faculty need not have that kind of a research profile. So it really depends on the mission of the institution. If your institution says that we want to be the best or the center of research in this region, then probably you tend to give a little bit more importance to the person who is writing the best publication. But it is not a simple and straightforward answer. And many institutions now started looking at having a 2 or 3 track system where encourage high quality teachers, encourage high quality research. But the danger is, if you say that you need to do research, and as I was telling you, there are several thousand journals, and if you start publishing from the bottom 10% of the journal, then there is a problem. So then sometimes those publications might help you with your NIRF ranking, but those publications are not doing anything good for anybody other than wasting paper and ink. So it again depends on the mission and the goal your institution is trying to achieve. Simple answer is all of them are important. I know it's not a very pragmatic answer, but it's kind of an institution leadership level decision about, in my view, every institution need not be research excellent. Just because some random ranking agency is using a certain rubric, but we all need to stand up and show courage to say that this is what we are trying to achieve. For achieving that, these are the 3 things we need to do well, and we will focus on that. That's a problem. It's a zero-sum game, this ranking, and every institution trying to become like every other institution is a problem. And also, even for individuals and for institutions, if you can define your own success, then no competition, because you are the most unique person. If success is defined by somebody else, as an individual or as an institution, then you are in trouble, because you're always kind of benchmarking somebody else is going to be better than you.
I have a question regarding.
It depends on what is your overall long-term goal. Because this accreditation itself may not be a goal in itself. It's kind of a path to achieving another goal. Maybe accreditation will give you better opportunity for student exchange. Maybe accreditation would give you a better rank so that you attract higher quality students and do something right. Then you need not worry about the rank itself. So kind of a path to achieving a much bigger long-term goal.
My friends at the different centers, do you have any query?
Sir, there was a slide regarding enemies of excellence. Enemies of excellence, you have mentioned micro-collectivism as one of the factors which could act as enemy of excellence. So could you please elaborate that how micro-collectivism is contributing to that?
Yeah, it's a very, very, very good, interesting, and a bit controversial topic. But micro collectivism says that, in a culture, we give a lot more importance to our immediate family and friends relative to others. There is nothing wrong in giving importance to our immediate family and friends. But when a job decision comes, should I prefer my close friend's son or somebody else who is more qualified? So those kind of difficult decisions we will have to make. That can go against excellence.
Thank you, sir.
Any other? Any other? Any other comment from any other center?
Okay, from Bhagwan Mahavir Engineering College.
Any comment? Any queries?
So the previous question was from our
बंद हो आ गया चलो शुरू 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 पूछो
हमारा ऑलरेडी क्वेश्चन
बताना स्टार्टिंग में ना वैसे बताना चाहिए
Polytechnic College Kashi Nagar.
Kashipur.
Kashipur. Okay, hello, Government Polytechnic College Kashipur. अगर आपका क्वेश्चन नहीं है तो भी बोल दीजिए कि नो क्वेश्चन, अदरवाइज हम यहाँ से चिल्ला रहे हैं आप कुछ
नो क्वेश्चन।
ये हमें पता है, मैंने पहले कह दिया नो क्वेश्चन।
कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं था ऐसे बोल दो नो क्वेश्चन।
एंड दिस इज द महाराजा शिवाजी राव यूनिवर्सिटी बड़ौदा। इस महाराजा शिवाजी राव बड़ौदा
इसको पहले करे क्या कहना पता लगे दोबारा नाम दे।
हेलो
जी सर।
sir, there is no question from Maharaja Sahajirao University of Baroda.
थैंक यू सर।
Otherwise, nobody is left. So, friends at NITER, any queries, any questions? कोई पूछना चाहेंगे? हाँ पूछिए, बैठ के पूछ लीजिए।
Sir, I have some other kind of problem, I must say. In my institution, I'm from the Government Polytechnic Devariya. There is a 3 college running in a single campus, and we have very limited resources in terms of faculties and availability of non-teaching staff. So all the faculties are involved in many kind of other administrative work, and as a teacher, I am facing a problem. Many times it occurs that I have to left my class and go for some meetings or some non-teaching works and students solving problem. So I think what should my priority? First, I have to take the class and left other academic work so that I can continue some interaction with my student, or I have to left my class and go for this kind of work so that my college can run smoothly, because my principal, he always say you should complete your work on time, non-teaching work. So as a person, as a teacher, how I can solve this and what should be my
this is it's an important one, and no simple answer. But I would say that these kind of situations we should look at it from a long-term point of view. So what is the long-term point of view? I find even at Thapar University, I find 90% of the administrative work is repetitive work, and for the last 62 years, we have never tried to templatize it and digitize it. Okay, 62 years back, it was impossible, but the last 20-30 years, information technology has developed and it has become so cheap these days that a lot of it, again, remember the Uberizing the university. You can also Uberize the Polytechnic. You know, as a nation, think about the beauty of this Uberizing. If I'm making a huge building and spending a few hundred crores, then that money cannot be used elsewhere to make the same building. But if I use, say, 30 lakhs to create a certain platform to capture all the things required for the regulators, and 30 lakhs is spent, I can replicate it 30 million times with very little extra effort. I know my answer will not solve your problem immediately, but if we can, we need to think beyond what we typically think. If we can somehow Uberize, or all the repetitive works should be, because you see, we face all sorts of problems. So let me tell you, mine is a small business school near Chandigarh. So we have several foreign faculty coming, lot of activities happening. Faculty goes abroad and gives presentations, and so many things are happening. But when we are writing a report for AICTE, we are able to write only 30% of what we do, 70% is left. But if we have, for everything, we have a simple system and process and a software. Okay, for going to conference, fill in few lines and click, and I will approve. And then finally, we one or two mouse click and we can generate a report, put everything together. So that is where all of us should try. And many students, they will do little things for a few thousand rupees, because that is the beauty of information technology and the idea of Uberizing. I think that is the only way. Otherwise, it's kind of physically impossible, because in life, the 2-3 things are very, very important. Life is all about choices. And when you make a choice, there is an opportunity cost. What is that opportunity cost? When I'm here, my opportunity cost is not, I'm not in my office and doing something else. So you make choices. So you do this, you won't be able to do that. But there is one way of kind of doing both, is kind of automating. And now it is the right time to kind of, use that. I think we have never had this kind of an opportunity in history, where you create something and you duplicate it without much effort.
I would like to add something on the lighter side. Everybody is expecting that you are the best teachers. And we are always talking of holistic development of students. And we also expect holistic development of teachers. They expect you very good teachers on one side in terms of teaching and interaction, but they are expecting you to do many more things on the other side, non-academic, even administrative. But what is happening in true sense, they are neither allowing you to be a good teacher nor allowing you to be a good administrator. Because you are spending most of your time on the other side of the story. So the balance has to be made by you rather than anybody else. They will force you to do many things. Sometimes you have to accept it. Sometimes you have to say, we cannot, or I cannot, because my primary duty is. This has to, as he said, it is by choice. You can't oppose everything, but always saying yes is also not required. That is equally important. Because once you say yes every time, it is expected that you will do it. Once you have to say no also, because this is not, I will do it after my teaching work. You have to show sincerity. But what is happening? Sometimes, on the other side, teachers don't want to go to class because students don't want to listen to them. They think this is a better option. They are out of the class, they are happy, administration happy. So this is also happening. Am I right? That's the point. Any other query?
Question, sir. Just you told about the micro module. Micro module is you build a micro module for 5, 6, 8 minutes lecture about any topics. So my question is, nowadays, I am as a student, I'm observing so many times, if any topic just I want to finish within 5 minutes. So I'm in lack of understanding about the deep of that knowledge. So it is good for the student if you are building a micro module instead of a brief introduction about that topic.
Okay, I understand. See, micro modules are not to substitute an introduction, or it is not independent module for any kind of education. Micro modules are part of a course which would have typically 400-500 modules. These micro modules are also at different levels. These are not fully contained and independent. So why the idea of micro module is because, say for example, we have developed a course. So I think the faculty should be able to pick a micro module and change it and put it back. If it is done it differently, then it may be difficult. Okay, which part of the video we have done it, and retake it and this and that. So this is only to make sure that we can quickly update it. The purpose is not to create an independent module. And a micro module doesn't mean that it is a superficial introductory one. It can also be very deep. Only thing is, it is cut into convenient pieces so that the faculty can modify it. It is not to make it easy for the students, because the students will see it as a whole course, but it is hyperlinked properly.
Any other query? No? If there is no query from any side, let me thank Dr. Nair for his interactive session. I think you must have enjoyed it. Let's close the session with a clap from your side. I appreciate Dr. Nair for being here. For being here at such a short notice. We invited him for such a talk because he had the vast experience in the area, running an institution which is fairly famous in the area, and also trying to vie towards the path of world-class institution. They are trying their level best, and his role as a director becomes very, very important. He is looking from the top and accordingly trying to modify the institution, bring some changes, bring some innovation, bring some new initiatives, and accordingly trying to bring the institution, which is at this point even very good institution, to the excellent level. And his role is very important, and learning from him is equally important. That's the reason we invited him. We thank him for the interaction, for the starting of the session with such a good note, with such an inspiring note. Thank you, sir, for being here. And I must say thank to Dr. Saini also, who was the middleman, I may say, between you and me. And he invited you for this session, telling me that he is one of the very good speakers. I was thinking, I know you in the past, I was knowing you in the past, but I have never interacted with you on the issue. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. Thank you, sir. Thank you, friends. We are meeting at 2:30 now in the same room. Come at 2:25. Okay?
So we'll go for lunch break. We'll assemble here at 2:30.
2:25.
So better you will come at 2:15 or 2:20. That it will take 5 to 10 minutes for break, right?
का थोड़ा स्लो friendly to some extent I am responsible because that overloaded is trying to करने चाहिए बहुत टाइम ले और हो सकता है किसी स्टेज पर थोड़ा एक्सटेंशन की हो जाए तो हमें है कोई बात नहीं आप थोड़ा मेहनत करके खींच लो काम थोड़ा पीछे हमारा मैं बोलो अभी हमारा डिपार्टमेंट इधर आए तो काम ज्यादा हो गया एंड देन वी थोड़ा ओवर यूटिलाइज इन द डिपार्टमेंट तो अभी इनको डायरेक्टर की तरफ से भी हमारे और हम भी कह रहे हैं कि जल्दी से जल्दी अपना काम करें और डॉक्टर को रिक्वेस्ट कर दीजिएगा जब तक
डेफिनेटली सर इज ऑलवेज सपोर्टिव मैम एंड सर वाज देयर इन यूएस आल्सो Chicago Academy of Management.
Oh, you were there?
Oh, okay. But उसमें I was with my wife and daughter.
Okay.
So I had to miss out.
हम भी इनको like he was raising that question, no multitasking. तो थोड़ा young है तो थोड़ा और ज़्यादा use कर लेते हैं. ये भी कर दो, वो भी कर दो. तो इसलिए थोड़ा सा
we cannot run. They have to run.
मेरे ख्याल में जल्दी आपका priority होती है.
Because I am unable to say no. काम की priority.
That's good, yeah. That's good. That is equally important, I assume. अगर आपसे ना शुरू कर दी ना तो कोई गुजारा नहीं होगा. धीरे-धीरे वो ना की आदत बन जाती है और ज्यादा डेंजरस हो जाती है. सर बहुत ज्यादा तो हम आज नहीं प्रोवाइड कर पाए, but really sorry for the delay in any case.
नहीं सॉरी आज तो बहुत गड़बड़ हो गई. अभी सर लंच बाद मैं नया एंट्री लगा के
हां क्या यार कुछ नहीं मजा नहीं.
ये बस ये इसके आगे लगा दो ना, ये पिलर के। अच्छा इस पे लगाएंगे। हाँ इसी फ्रंट में लगाते हैं। फ्रंट में लगा दो भाई। अब इस पे क्या है यार, रुक जा ये रहने चाहिए कुछ पिलर में लगाने में काम बिजली कहाँ बचाएगी यहाँ पे। ये कोई खराब ना हो जाए, कोई रहने दो, ऐसे नहीं पंगा करो इसको। गोल साहब ने ऐसी कह जाने के लिए थे नहीं, यहाँ पे बिजली खराब हो जाएगी, बिजली नहीं पहुंचेगी ना, इंटरनेट भी पहुंचेगा। देखते हैं कहाँ से इसको लगाएंगे तो किधर से। यहाँ पे इस वाले के लिए बोल रहे हैं ना ये है, इधर तो उस साइड उस बात पे लगाएंगे ऐसा करो। मैं इसको रोक दो यार, इसको कोई नहीं ऐसा, जब तक मैडम को कोई बताएगी सामने कोई नहीं। चलो आ जाओ यार, इसको कोई नहीं छेड़ना, मैं तो पंगा पड़ जाएगा ना। कोई नहीं यार, इसको कोई नहीं रहता, ऐसे नहीं छेड़ना। अगर इस पे कह रहे हैं इनके लिए बोल रहा हूँ, फिर ये कि यहाँ में जो पार्टिसिपेंट बैठेंगे इस पे दे देंगे। नहीं पिलर में डालो यार, तो बहुत बीस काम है, बिजली कौन बचाएगा, बिजली कौन जाएगा, इंटरनेट कार्ड इंटरनेट कहाँ पे आएगा, खराब भी होगी ना इसकी। तो हमारे सामने वो तो डिसाइड तो फिर वो ही करेंगे, इनके लिए कर देंगे ना सेंटर में जो है पिलर में जाए बीच में। जरूरत है यार, ये तो अच्छी चीज लग रही है यहाँ पे, इसमें क्या लगानी है, इतना बड़ा लग रहा है। फोन करें मैच में उसे बंदे हो रहे हैं डिस्टर्ब करना। तो आई थी मैडम अभी तो ये पहले आपको कुछ दिखाती कोटेशन दे दी उसकी लैपटॉप वाली, सैंक्शन दे दी उसने, सैंक्शन दे दी मैडम ने। मैडम ये नहीं पता सर अभी है सैंक्शन तो बताती नहीं कितने लेके आए हुए हैं आजकल, तो वहाँ पर काम नहीं चलते हैं, इसमें इतना टाइम नहीं है। वो टीवी को देख लेते हैं नीचे एक बार, उसका कन्वर्टर डाल के देख लेते हैं हम उसको। कौन सा जो बीजीएस से नहीं जा रही है ना, हम यहाँ पे बैटरी खोल के देख लेते हैं, तो बंद करना मुश्किल होता है इसको। नहीं कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, बाद में फिर वो चाहे बोलेगा नहीं आ जाओ देखिए देख लेते हैं। और नीचे आता है ताकि इसमें खराब हो गया
இதுதான் இருக்கு மேடம். இப்போதைக்கு பிரச்சனையே கிடையாது. போனீங்கன்னா அவங்க ஆன் பண்ணாங்கன்னா நமக்கு உங்களுக்கும் தெரியும், இதுவும் தெரியும். ஓகேங்களா?
சரி, எத்தனை மணிக்கு ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க?
2:30.
2:30. இப்போ என்ன டைம்? இதுதான் 2வது.
இது வரீங்களா? யூ இது நீங்க இது இவங்கெல்லாம் வந்து இதுக்கு போயிருக்காங்க. சரி.
जय राधे कृष्ण गोविंद ठीक है यार मैं खड़ा हूँ तो अच्छा मैं खड़ा बनना अच्छा थैंक यू ओ मेरी महबूबा 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 तुझे जाना है तो जा तेरी मर्जी मेरा क्या एक जोर खबर आएगी ओ मेरी महबूबा 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 तुझे जाना हो मर्जी तेरी मर्जी मेरा क्या हरजोत सर
आई नहीं है आंसर
किनका है सर
आंसर क्या है यार सुबह जब ये बंदा बड़ा अच्छा था टॉप वाला बंदा था
हाँ
उस टाइम बड़ा शेयर नहीं था रहा
सर आज 5 फंक वो थे आगे
5 चलाते रहे हैं पहले भी चलाते रहे हैं ना ऐसा क्या था तभी इमरजेंसी करके इसे बनाया था ना कमरे को लास्ट सैटरडे संडे लग के तुम लोगों ने बनाया था क्या मीटिंग चल रही थी बोर्ड रूम में?
सर एआईसीटी की थी।
क्या था?
सर वो यही थी सर, पीएचडी वगैरह के लिए थी।
अच्छा, क्यों के अंदर उसके अंदर क्यूआईटी का।
हाँ जी
हैं?
हम लोग ये थोड़े कुछ करेंगे क्यूआईटी गवर्नमेंट।
हाँ, उसके लिए वो कैमरा का क्या रोल था उसमें?
सर वो ऑनलाइन कनेक्टेड थे, आधे लोग आए नहीं थे।
अच्छा अच्छा।
इसमें तो बहुत तो पहले तो वो पीवीसी फाइल भर के देनी पड़ेगी। ऑनलाइन में काम है।
वो व्हाइट कलर में चल रहा है सुबह सारा काले के साथ।
ये
इसमें इसमें लगे। हेलो हेलो हरी सर, कहाँ से बोल रहे हैं सर आप? अब ये तो सर अब आपके पास कोई टेक्नीशियन नहीं है वहाँ, ये तो वो बताएंगे सर।
वेबकैम लगाया है कुछ ना?
आपने वेबकैम लगाया सर ना?
तो जो किसी सॉफ्टवेयर जो ओपन है ना उसको पहले बंद करो सर। अगर वो ओपन है ना, ओपन किया हुआ है अपने, हाँ उसको बंद कर दो। कैमरा लगे रहने दो, मतलब वीडियो बंद कर दो अगर वीडियो कहीं ओपन है तो। अब सेटिंग में जाके ना फोर्थ ऑप्शन देखना, सेटिंग को आएगा, उसमें सिलेक्ट करो सर वो वेबकैम।
अच्छा, एक यूनिवर्सिटी वाले पीछे लगे हुए हैं मेरे। अब सर हमें कहीं का हमने लगाना ज्वाइन करना है
सर उसको सिलेक्ट करके एक बार रिफ्रेश करो पेज को।
करना है
आगे ठीक है सर।
हैं? करना है एक और राइट?
हाँ अब हो सकता है, अब मैं कैमरा भी लगा देता हूँ, हो जाएगा। अब फिर वो टाइम लेंगे तो बीच में डिस्टर्ब होगा।
आपको नंबर देता हूँ, पूछो ये कि अगर कितनी देर में अगर हो सकता है बताओ, कितने बार
हो सकते हैं।
मैं बात कर लेता हूँ।
कौन सा कॉलेज है?
ये बताता हूँ, ये आया था टेलीफोन लेडी का। SC कांचीपुरम से है ये।
अच्छा
SCS
सर इनको आई थिंक
इनको पता है।
करूँ फिर बात? ये ले मैं ये नंबर दूं तेरे को? 866 720 4543 ये है SCS BMB यूनिवर्सिटी कांचीपुरम। यूनिवर्सिटी कांचीपुरम, कांचीपुरम चंडीगढ़ नहीं, चंडीगढ़ बना लेगा तो। हाँ जी सर, क्या हाल चाल है? इससे बात कर रहे हैं तो।
हेलो, क्या हाल है?
हाँ जी सर।
हाँ,
कैसे बाहर गए हुए थे?
हमें साढ़े 50 साल से का।
ओ हाँ, रुड़की जाना से क्या सर? अपनी मैंने यूनिवर्सिटी में तो 50 साल हो गए।
हाले नहीं हाले तो पढ़ाई नहीं हो रही है 2-4 साल बाद।
2-4 साल
और सर आप क्या हाल?
बस सर हैं यहाँ पे 12-13
बहुत
बाकी 4-5 सेंटर।
चलो ठीक है, बढ़िया।
सुबह तो मैंने उनको बुलाया था, नायर नहीं है, ये बोला डायरेक्टर है जो छापर वाला यहाँ डेरा बस्सी। मैं चलो आया बंदा अच्छा, वर्ल्ड क्लास इंस्टीट्यूशंस पे
नहीं अच्छा,
बट हमारा अरेंजमेंट सुबह नाइस नहीं था। पेटी शेबी आई मस्ट से दिस।
नहीं यार, ये
नहीं पूछ लो, हालत ये थी हमारे, कैमरा भी नहीं था।
नहीं ये
हेलो हाँ जी
and the connection on pretty sure this one.
हाँ जी मैम बताइए। अभी 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 फिर से आपको कॉल भेज रहे हैं।
pretty sure this one should have myself. हाँ चाहिए कि नहीं तो चाहिए नहीं आती। ये तो बड़ी गलत बात है। I felt bad about it, but still उसको दोबारा लाता नहीं था। आएगा नहीं आएगा। एक बार
एक्चुअली पहले ही थोड़ा सा वीडियो होता है ना
सर इनका जोन बेचारे का 4 के 4 सेंटर लगे हुए हैं बंदे 3 लगा रखे हैं ये ऊपर जाए नीचे जाए भाग भाग बेचारा कर अकेला करेगा यू हैव टू प्लेस पीपल ऑन द फर्स्ट डे बाद में ये हमेशा चाहे तुम हटा दो पहले दिन जब स्टार्ट हो रहा है उस टाइम बंदे पूरे लगाओ लेट्स द प्रोसेस स्टार्ट
एटलीस्ट फर्स्ट डे हर एक सेंटर पे 2-2
सर अभी ऐसे है एक कोर्स के लिए 3-3 जगह होना पड़ता है
नेचुरली तो हो गई मतलब एटलीस्ट एक बंदा तो बैठा होगा ना ये तो 4 के साथ 3 बंदे बैठे तो बिल्कुल ही गया हाँ दे कल फेल्ट बैड
तो अपना इंप्रेशन भी खराब जाता है
आगे आता है कि और he will say 10 times at different places अगर एक टीचर ट्रेनिंग इंस्टीट्यूशन होता है मिलते बात को
ये नहीं फूल होता ये तो आपको पढ़ाई मतलब ये तो पढ़ा और चुने फिर ऐसे और नहीं अच्छा हमें तो हम कर लेते हैं ना चलो यार लेट्स ट्राई
उसको देख लो कि पहले कभी जाओ अदरवाइज किसी फैसला से वो कहेगा
हाँ तुम्हारे कनेक्टेड है हम हाँ कर यार अपने यूपी वालों से कहिए आए लेते हैं कमेंट टाइम सुबह भी अपने लेट हो गया था आई हैव आस्क्ड देम टू कम इन दिस इज अ रिक्वेस्ट टू ऑल ऑफ यू लेट मी टेल यू वेरी फ्रैंकली I always start after 9:45 morning. I will start at 10, but you should be before time. Expected to उसके बाद आ रही है। पहले 9:30 की जो flexibility in the morning. I generally start at 2:30. After 2:30. You are supposed to be by 2, but still चलो आपको come by 2:30 at the most. Don't delay. This is not acceptable. हम मैं पूरी आपको फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी दूंगा जितनी चाहिए बट डोंट लिमिट्स ठीक है कन्वे टू एवरीबॉडी यू आर एक्सपेक्टेड टू बी इन टाइम 10 मिनट्स है 5 minutes before 10 okay